all so very different, but a lot of similarities as well. And a common thread that was coming up was on authenticity that I want to place my first question on. And it was my first question was, how do you foster an atmosphere that grows authenticity? How do we allow? We were talking in our workshop on Monday about when we press record on the camera, people change. And so they notice that something is happening. Even in documentary filmmaking, I'm sure we found as well, when people are aware of the camera in the room, and even with dancers as well, knowing they're being recorded, their movement quality changes. So how do we get them away from that? Is it a question of moving the camera further away? Or is it a question of giving imagery and exercises to the performers to help them get into a place? Anyone feel free to.
I think it's maybe just a question of how well you get on with the dancers, if there's a certain level of trust. I mean, I'm not super experienced about this, but as I was saying yesterday, I'll only work with people that are going to give, 150%, and equally I'll do the same for them. So that for me is a kind of starting point. And I think that helps. The odd time I've made a slight mistake because I was working with somebody kind of worked for one film, but then it didn't work for another one, which I hadn't expected. But generally, I think if the chemistry is right, I think that for me helps getting it to, that they're able to give 150%, because I don't want less.
I think I'd be scared of working with you.
That's what my husband said, God, I'm glad I don't work for you. No, we actually have a lot of laughs.
Oh, that's good. I think we just take it back down to basics. I should have mentioned that we knew from day one that freefall, the only way we could work with freefall was if we were all together on the same page. So I made all of the DOPs, the lighting, the whole crew had to do the warm-up every time, every day. And freefall led it, and it was quite funny to see the gaffers sitting there going, "Oh, I can't touch my toes." But we had to do that. We spent a lot of time just mucking it, just dancing. And equally with this last film now, where they're visually impaired, I was thinking, well, what do I do? Because I can say I'm Seema, I'm in the room, I have a camera, but what does that really mean? So now I have a particular hand sign that I have. Which is camera, and I take Caroline's hand and I show her that that's me and this is what I'm doing, and I do that every time I see her. And if I'm near her and I'm filming, I make sure that she's very aware that I'm there, and that contact and that connection really works. So yes, what I do.
Should I carry on?
Yeah, please.
So obviously, like with the work that we presented today, the sense of authenticity is that people aren't performing. But it was interesting actually, because in a sense they were. Like I'll be honest that some of the images, and now I regret that, not approaching the person afterwards and saying, "I've just filmed you, is that okay?" I'd say one or two of them we didn't do that, to be honest, but the majority we did. We were speaking to the people, they knew. But actually that thing of them then knowing and then just upping their game ever so slightly. But I think regardless, the authenticity more for what we presented is in that it was a real experience. You're seeing a true sense of our presence there. But I think otherwise, like previous work we've made isn't of that style at all. It's extremely theatrical. And I used to run an inclusive dance company, and we made a film as well called Wave, and getting people behind the camera, getting them used to the technology and that it's okay and they can look behind when they need to, and that you're a human, you're a human with the camera, you're not just this piece of technology, and just being a human with whoever you're working with. Yeah.
And I think it's the question of performing, what is performing? Is it or for me it's being and trying to coordinate myself in different situations and spaces and contexts, how I'm here now. And in our exploration we we didn't really show the face, for example, so it was the performing where it was somewhere else.
Conscious decision to not use Hannah's face. So
Yeah, so I guess the performing was more in the
Yeah.
back or like, yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the audience that anyone would like to ask? Anna is there at the front with the microphone of truth. Mitch, Mike's coming to you.
I'm not sure that there's a question here. When you were taking your seats, they showed a few moments of further, and you were coming down the stairs in the orange. I don't recall seeing that in the movie. The way I thought that the movie began was just seeing like the door handle and the railing. Did you come down the stairs and we saw that?
can you repeat
Sure
the
did.
question
So
again?
that-
So, can you be, yeah.
I felt as if I had a question that I was going to ask before, but it changed when I saw that part. I thought that the movie began just with an image of the diagonal railing on the stairs and then the chrome door handle. But a moment ago, they showed you coming down the stairs and going out the door. Did you do that in the movie we saw, when we saw it? Or did a few seconds get chopped off? Nobody understands.
What was that was
at the
planned?
end you mean you saw that at the end of the film?
Just as we were coming to sit down.
Yeah, when you were
There was
walking
a
to your
little-
seats, I saw Hannah come down the stairs, but I don't recall seeing that at the beginning of the movie.
I think it was at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah,
Tiny bit.
it must have.
So I think that was an accident if there was a tiny bit in the very end. So that shouldn't be
Okay.
there. So.
I guess I don't have a question.
Thank you.
Well, here's one question, because the first part of it doesn't apply. Why do you have a red coat and sometimes have an orange coat? Just because it rained?
Actually, quite many people have asked that same question, like why we have that kind of red coat there. So, but as an artist and as a director, I don't want to give exact ideas why we are changing the jacket. So it's something that happens in the past, or I think that is something that happens in the past, and it's some kind of memory of this character in our film. So that's kind of thing. But I also want to give room for audience to make their own interpretations, not giving exact answers that here we are changing the code, how you say code, and then you what happens after that. So yeah, I hope that answered to your
That's
question.
fine. I'm always just curious as to
Yeah.
the specifics that artists make in little things like why did they put this thing here or something like that. So that's fine.
Yes. Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, just down there. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, anyone?
Yeah, sure.
So I've got a question for Natalie. You said something earlier that I thought was super interesting. You mentioned how Screen.Dance for you was movement as a site and as a place for choreography. So I was wondering if you could tell us more about your thoughts on that. And then I have another question, but I'll ask afterwards.
Okay. It's Natalia. I'm very precious about not being Natalie. Natalia. You call me Natalia, Ines. You called me Natalie. Natalia.
Natalia.
Just sorry. Okay. So yeah, I think what I think about that is, yeah, I see choreography in movement. I see choreography and I see movement as dance, and I think I see that. I think I've more trained my eye to see that more than anything, based on especially the works that Owa introduced me to over maybe the past 5-6 years. You know, intentional experimental film that focuses on movement. I can just, I just see it as a place where you're composing images and you're structuring them and you're placing rhythm on those images. So for me, it's you're applying the same conditions that you're applying to bodies and to dancers and to choreography. Yeah, just movement being the base of everything. Maybe I'm not necessarily saying everything is dance, but movement is valid, if that makes sense. Yeah, but I totally know there's perspectives that have gone on for years and years of people maybe not necessarily feeling like if a work doesn't include a body, then maybe we shouldn't define it as screen dance or video dance. That's okay, yeah.
People call it radical screen dance. Right?
Yeah. I think it's at some point to be referenced as guerrilla or radical screen dance if no bodies are there or not. I think it's just it's your opinion, it's your taste, and not putting any limits on my work. I'm just making what I'm kind of interested in. And
I was just going to say that it's really good to go back to basics of having 24 frames per second, and you are drawing movement 24 frames per second. You're not filming it, you're drawing it. And if anything's going to teach you about movement, the frame, the speed, it's actually doing it by hand first of all, like animation does, but it is something about the film itself and then putting it through a projector and you're counting those frames and you're understanding how much you need to use and what that movement looks like. And I mean, that's really fast that you see it, and that's the slowest I could get it, and I had reams and reams and reams of 16mm, but it was a great way of just learning about framing, movement, film.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all again. This is a question for Seema. It really comes directly from Ileana's comment. And I'm totally interested also in the history and the links and the lineage and those kinds of things. And we're talking about your 16mm film. Do you think of that film as a dance film or a screen dance film?
I was massively into Len Nye. I actually came across Len Nye after I started working on 16, or during actually. Len Nye is an animator, a filmmaker, I don't know his full title, but he started to study movement in the frame, and he had an exhibition down in London, like 98 or so, and I started on 16mm, and only because my university had a 16mm studio, so I was like, I'll just play around in here. And so when I started to look into Len Nye's work, I then started to see all the other filmmakers before him, who were using film in this real tactile manner. And yes, I see it as screen dance, or dance with a camera, or I don't know what the terminology would be, but movement on film is how I see it. So I do certainly think it's the beginnings of the genre.
Yeah, terrific. I mean, Norman McLaren, again, in that same kind of understanding of how animation and again, the frame rate and all that kind of thing creates a movement base, and that's how we respond to it. So a film like Blinkety Blank from, 45 or something, again, how the black sequences affect our retinal appreciation of what's on screen and how we react to the music. Again, I love the way that you work with the music and the whole rhythm of the piece, so thank you.
can I make maybe a bit of a falling off of what you said about structure and beginnings and endings, that obviously it's an artist by artist decision. I think there's something in that about where our work is being presented and the platforms that we have. So I think maybe even last year we were feeling quite limited by festival environments in that we were never there. We were sending our work internationally, at the times it would get in, that's wonderful, but we can't afford to go to Argentina, to see the work. But regardless, it's being programmed, and we know that it's part of a structured festival program. Of course, things like this are important because we're all here and we all share a common interest and practice. But then also, I'm very keen at the moment to talk more later about where else is a place for our work. And I know it came up earlier with galleries and spaces like that. But it's also, is there not room for our work to now be seen as part of platforms, as live dance platforms, but integrated. If you've made a choice that your work is transient, you can go in and out of a room. That's cool. Program it in a corner that people can go in and out if they want to. But a lot of the time, you're not given that choice. and like people don't know that it's tucked in a side room and they're going in halfway through your film and you want it to have a beginning and an ending. Like that was your intention.
I had that with my second film, but they did ask me did I want it in the gallery, and I just got the feeling that they didn't want to screen it in the main thing. So against my better judgment, I said, yeah, okay. So I went down to this arts place, which was a good deal away from the main centre, and there was a guy in a room with the door closed. He was, you know, in charge of the area. So I thought, this doesn't look too good. So we're kind of looking at all, there's about 10, 15 screens, and suddenly my husband said, oh, that's your film, isn't it? And I thought, oh yeah. So we're, I don't know, midway through it or whatever. So we waited until it came back again, and then we watched it a couple of times. Came out and you signed the visitor's book, and 3 people had seen it. So it was my husband, me, and one other lucky person who had come to see it. So I think it's different if it's a specific installation thing in a museum or a gallery, fine. But I didn't enjoy that, and it's not. I don't think it's sort of being precious or anything. I prefer it to be people to sit still and kind of watch it. And if I've only done 3 films. I haven't done something where people can wander in and out. That's a totally different happening.
Just I forgot to say with the cycling stuff, I had the same problem. But I thought to myself, how best can I get this seen by as many people as possible? And because I'd cycled across all those countries, the way I actually presented that work, and I should have mentioned it when you saw it, is that I had 3 panniers all the time when I cycled. So the bicycle became then part of an installation. So with the bicycle, the same bicycle that I used to cycle the different countries, I had 1 pannier at the front, 2 panniers at the back. I put 3 screens on the bicycle, one at the front, 2 at the side. And one on the right-hand side had all the people that I'd met. The one on the left-hand side had all the landscapes, and the one at the front was just all the camera shots that you saw on my helmet. And I thought, right, I'm just going to just cycle this around and just take it to a gallery and just put it there. Yeah. And so that's what I did. And so it's just trying to find unusual, different ways of showing the work, because especially if it's large scale, it's really hard to get it programmed. But maybe if you thought, I don't know, if there's a different way and a new way of presenting it.
The way is brilliant.
Yeah, completely. And I think that was maybe where this project started. It started as the 3-channel installation, as a kind of formal response that our work wasn't. We just weren't connected to the work, that it was going internationally. We didn't really know how it was being programmed, and if it wasn't going to festivals, where else do you show it? Because so many people are still disconnected with and something video based. And I know we can go over and over and over this, but I'm putting it out to the room for people that do program work. Let's start programming screen-based stuff as well.
I don't have any solutions on the installation. I don't have any solutions, but I know Breaking 8 in Italy, Alessandra, people know Risu. She's been a great supporter and help for me, and she often has a screen dance evening, but she also programs it very deliberately. One screening, and it's not always possible on venue, at the beginning of a live dance performance, and she's got a whole live dance audience of 250 people. It's a little bit like the at the end of the TV show, and she finds that a really successful way of grabbing new audience. And then also, I'm sure we've all had the moment when your dance screen work is accepted by a non-dance film festival.
Yeah.
Oh, because that kind of
experimental.
Yeah. Well, occasionally, but that's also. It's. I suppose again, it's the same question. It's trying to ask programmers to be just a little bit more open, and that's again, I say what Alessandra's doing is dependent on venue, and she works very hard with budget and stuff. But actually, I was kind of like, that's really cool, because there's a whole group of people gone to see a live performance and actually seen a screen dance work as well, who may not have gone to a screen dance evening. So for her, that's proved very successful, and perhaps is a not particularly complicated way. So, but again, it's imagination, like you're saying. How can you imaginative ways?
Thank you.
It's Pete wants to.
Keep it up there.
just to follow on from that topic, we've got a big show on Sunday in the concert hall called the Great Big Dance Show, which is a community show with all sorts of different sorts of dance, with a family audience of about 500 people, and we're going to show 2 films at that on that evening. So, and I know that people who wouldn't ever go and see a Screen.Dance film see that and go, oh, that was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can I mention that I was just a punter at the event at the Great Big Dance Show last year, so it's an annual event as part of the Prague Dance Festival, and we were showing Crosswitters to the end of the fingertips, only because it's part of our museum collection. We could have just, picked up any work in our collection, but we obviously wanted a screen dance piece. And I was there watching each and every mum and dad, absolutely loving it, completely unaware of what is it they're seeing. They are not really part of the big agenda that it is the screen dance collection that we are building, or it is this particular community that we're interested. They just consume this piece of work just on the par with all their young prodigies that were on the stage, and I'm not underestimating the work. It's incredibly high quality community dance, but it was just smuggled in there through the back door, and it worked really well. And it was Peter's choice from the collection. I just admired that he picked up something so difficult in a way, because of its abstract nature, but it had this fairy tale kind of elements that people related to. And I think it was a huge success, and we're just building on this year upon year, and the more works in the collection. But obviously, we're also trying to select stuff from that hasn't entered the collections yet. That's what we're doing this year.
I think you're very ahead of the game here. I do think, I think what you're doing here is fantastic.
In a very humble way, yeah.
No, it's
Mitch down there.
I don't know if you folks have considered this in the past, but I'm interested to go down the panel and ask, do you have a dream project? If money was absolutely no issue, is there a project that you would like to do?
Yeah, my next film. It's nearly ready to go. Anybody out there?
Well, no, I'm talking about really dreaming big, besides like what's next. Is there something someday I would love to do this? It might cost millions of dollars, but that would be like the artistic pinnacle for me. You may not have ever thought about it.
I'm wanting to make a film about modern day suffrage, and massively into the suffrage campaign, and I'd be dying to get it off the ground. I guess if I had as much money as I wanted, I'd make a feature on it as a dance film. But at the moment, I'm happy just to make a 5-minute version. But yeah, if it was my dream project, I would take out 3 years of my life to do that if I had the budget.
I'm at the moment working on, I really want to make something about the psychological issues of injuries in dancers, and make a documentary about that. I went through a really big injury a year ago, and they fixed it physically, but there wasn't really much help on the psychotherapy side of things. And speaking to other dancers, I feel like we go through the same things when we do get injured. So that's been something I've been looking into and would love to do it.
Is it the dream project? Or is it something you want to do?
No, I think it's definitely a dream. Yeah, I think it would definitely be a dream, because my fear is who's interested, who cares apart from the dancers, perhaps, so it would be a dream to be able to get that out there, and lots of people would listen to that. So that's my little thing there.
I'm happy to join your project.
Well, good, yes. I like that one too. Oh, great. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
I've got a question. When is your film being screened?
What's it
called? What's it on? Be here. Make sure you watch it, because if you don't...
Would you go at the back there? Go for it.
It's in regards of music. How you guys deal with composing the music for your shows? Does it come before, doing like the pre-pro, and you give it to your dancers and they kind of, start building the choreography, or it comes afterwards once you sort of like finish the edit and then you bring the composer? Or I'm just curious, like at what point you guys handle the music and how that impacts your creative decisions and your edits and the rhythm and and the story.
I think for me it comes afterwards, because first I like concentrate on filming, and then afterwards I get some kind of associations or some kind of ideas from that imagery. So yeah, it comes afterwards, but yeah. And usually I usually don't use like exact music, so I tend to use like sounds and make some kind of sound score out of those sounds.
So there'll be like a temp track that you'll be using beforehand, something temporary.
What does that mean? So
Like a guide track, so you use something like as an example.
yeah, actually I don't have a guide track, so yeah. I don't know how others are doing that, but so I have to say that I'm a greenhorn in this industry, so I don't have that much knowledge about this whole screen dance thing, but I'm learning, and I hope to learn more in the future, so yeah.
I think for us it's always generally came after. Yeah, so we've had the images and almost had all of the edit, and the sound signs come after, and it's been different experiences. Like the first film we made, we had a friend composer in Sweden, so he was composing for the film. And otherwise, like, you've pretty much done all of the sound design on our films, and we've used a lot of tracks from the Free Music Archive. Just taking tracks from that website that just by strikes of luck have worked, or you've had to work hard on editing them because you can, because it's Free Music Archive, so you're allowed.
But for you guys especially, because you don't have necessarily a dancer on screen, and then you're creating a dance with the rhythm of the images and the way you cut and the pace of the cut and the contrast and all this complex, dance, so let's put it this way. So if you don't have the track, how you go about kind of defining those, moments or defining the pace? So I'm very curious, just to kind of hear like how you guys deal with it.
What also comes with some sort of choreographing the sound as well. I think we start with the image. That's the most important thing for us, to get influenced by the movement of the image and how we can work with the image itself and the frames, and the movement of the frames. And after that, we think about the sounds and how can we incorporate. And a lot of these times can be also just plain luck. It just works sometimes. But yeah, there is a lot of thinking in terms of working with sound design and respond to the images.
Yeah, but I think when you before you get to that stage, like it depends who you are as an artist and what. Like if I'm creating movement work, I tend to create it without sound. Tend to do it without sound anyway. So I guess that's my practice already. So I'm kind of used to working with choreography and that type of thing without sound influencing me. First and foremost.
Yeah, I was gonna say on that side, because I come from a hip hop background, so sound's always first. A lot of hip hop dancers, I can't move unless you put something on, And my first year of uni, they got us to dance to silence the whole year, right? And the teacher said to us is that you start to find out what's your own inner pace, what is your own personal pace. And then I started editing in that way. When was I getting bored? When was long enough for me? Just there. And without the music, I was able to not have the restriction of the beats or the time signature. So it was a real big challenge for me to edit in silence or and find out what my own personal ideals of pace were for me. So yeah, I definitely came from the
Yeah.
other way around into it, but I think both are just as valuable. And a lot of film they make first, and then they'll put up on the screen, and the orchestra will play to compose over the top at the end. So it's nice working in both ways, and it's really nice having music as a starting point if we get the option to. But yeah, I think it's both to explore both.
Yeah, totally. We have Spotify on while we're editing. Like we'll be
Yeah, right.
editing that film to like hip hop, like you know what I mean, and it actually just goes over our head. Like we can hear that,
Yeah,
but maybe it is
influences.
influence. Maybe somewhere in the edit there's like some type of influence in the edit somehow. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Was that? Oh, sorry.
I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, but obviously with Free-Fall and with the final film, we always worked with, we tried to keep it as inclusive as possible, so dancers always work with the same composer, and he's the pianist in their rehearsals, and so we usually pretty much make the music at the same time as they're dancing. And then with the final Free-Fall film, I used a 10 track, but then the Birmingham Royal Ballet Orchestra said that they will play the music for us, and I was like, no way, that's amazing. So we went down to Angel Studios, and whatever I'd cut together with a 10 track just got thrown in the bin. The music got thrown in the bin. They were watching the film and they were playing, and there was a whole orchestra, and I was like, that was a really unusual experience to have, but a very really different way of working. And then the final project I'm working on, the music's coming first, because the deafblind music artist, vocalist is giving us a range of sounds to use, and then we'll be dancing to that.
I just want to say that I've had the experience of having the ready-made music first, and then the ready-made music already composed afterwards. And on the last film, I tried to get a composer in at the beginning, because I thought, even though he was in the States, I was in Ireland, we could kind of work in tandem. But it just didn't work. I was doing things like describing the scenes and sending him little sections and whatever. And I just thought, this is just too much work. And I then didn't hear from him for a few months. And then he got in touch with me 6 months later and said, what's happening? And I said, well, nothing, because he didn't really get back to me. So we amicably parted, and I decided just to leave it. So yeah, there's various ways, I suppose, of doing it. I would like to do it right from the beginning, but that just hasn't happened yet.
You've got to find the right person, haven't you?
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's a lot of trust in that.
Just like with your cinematographer
Yeah.
or with your choreographer, you will find the composer who gets you. And when I make my dramas, there's a friend of mine who makes all the music for my drama film work. He's actually, I'm pointing at you because he lives in Toronto in Canada. And literally I'll just say, I'm making a film about this. He'll send me a track within 24 hours, and it's just great. So I'll give you his number. I think it's about trying to find the right person. I mean, I've gone through quite a few different musicians, but I'll stick with him now. He's in Canada. We just Skype.
I asked that question because I've been to both situations. I had the score made beforehand so I could give it to the dancers so they can kind of develop. But I felt at the same time that it was the script, because it was bound to the music, which was a great direction for all the filmmakers in the project. But at the same time, scenes that didn't work, I felt that I was locked by the music because it was already done. So you feel like kind of constrained in that regards. But I had also the opposite situation, that the music came afterwards, and it kind of made us it was very challenging to find the focus, because there was not the script to direct us. So that fine balance can be quite interesting, like this dilemma, the before and after. So that's why I want to kind of hear your guys.
The ideology would be that everyone's in the studio at the same time, working on it together and changing and chopping and moving. I'd imagine, right? That'd be lovely if that was a more of a possibility to do that. But yeah, thank you, everybody. We have run out of time. But please feel free to catch any of these guys outside in the bar later on today. And can we please give another big round of applause for all of our speakers here today?